gentlemen, I once more like to talk to you and make you abreast with the latest happenings which are going on in India. I'm going to touch on a very touchy topic, but I'm afraid one cannot escape from such topics. But before I say that, I'll have to mention something about Hindu Muslim relations in the subcontinent. There was a time when the Hindus ruled the entire subcontinent. They were replaced by the Buddhists when Emperor Ashok came, and after he went, Brahminism or the Hinduist cult came back, and then came the invaders, the Turkish invaders from Samarkand, Central Asia, and they slowly established themselves in the country and they became the rulers. The result was that a substantial number of people in the subcontinent converted to Islam. Now, that is the actual fact. But there's another fact that the Muslims and the Hindus lived in harmony for a long time. There were always periods of conflict because that was the period when conflict was and war was the paramount way of achieving any political objective. But generally, the Hindus and the Muslims lived together and they continued even when the Indian kings came into power, like Tipu Sultan or Maharaja Ranjit Singh. It was okay. Things started becoming bitter and sour when the British came to India. The British came with the policy of divide and rule, and they began to make a separate electorate, give special privilege to the Muslims. Though initially the Muslims were worse off under British rule, but then the British thought it better that the only way they could continue rule was dividing the people, and that's what they believed in. But there are no records of very many riots in that period. But the riots started when there was a renaissance created by the British that the two religions or two people were entirely different. That led to the demand for Pakistan, and it is a sad occurrence that Pakistan was created out of India by the British. Even Jinnah up to 1944 or 45 had not asked for Pakistan. He was confident he would be the Prime Minister of India. But Gandhi and Nehru had other ideas, and partition was brought about, and India opted to become a secular republic, while Pakistan became an Islamic state. The division was on the basis of religion. Now, that part cannot be denied. Logically, India should have been declared as a Hindu Rashtra, which didn't happen at that time. But since our forefathers accepted secularism, one has to go with it. There's nothing one can say that why we are secularist. We are secularist. Well, we are secularist. We treat all religions the same. But after 47, things were reasonably okay so long as the Congress continued in power. But the Congress was ignoring the majority community, and there was bound to be a backlash. And the backlash came in the form of the Hindu Mahasabha. One of their leaders went and shot Gandhi, and then we had the Jan Sangh coming in, and later on the BJP. The BJP is in power basically on the Hindu vote. When you say the BJP has won 40% of the national vote, nobody has really worked out what was the percentage of the Hindu vote they got. Hindus constitute about 79 to 80% of the Indian population. And if you the Hindus win, if anybody can win the trust of the Hindus, he wins the country. So the BJP policy is very clear. They are pro-Hindu and they keep on pandering to Hindu tastes, to Hindu whims and fantasies. There is a flaw here, however, a very big flaw. And that big flaw is not realizing that there is a significant minority in the country. We have the Muslims, we have the Sikhs, we have the Parsis, Jains. All of them constitute about 20% of the population. You can't write them away. Considering the fact that India has got a population of 1.4 billion, that means you have almost 300 million people who are belonging to the minorities. And 300 million is a very big population. It is as big as the population of the United States. So, whichever government comes into power has to balance the various permutations and combinations and ensure that there is justice for all. The BJP, unfortunately, I have been observing, is one party which talks a lot. I mean, you see Narendra Modi making all sorts of speeches, but what they practice is different. And one of the cases which has really caught the hackles of the minorities is the recent Bilkis rape case. It's not a recent case, it happened in 2002 when there were riots between the Hindus and the Muslims. I'll not go into who was responsible. The riots took place. There was a rape which was carried out, and the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, decided that the trial could not be carried out in Gujarat. It had to be done in Bombay. It was done, and they were sentenced, all of them, I think 10, 11 of them, to life imprisonment. They appealed to the superior courts, and finally, even the High Court and all of them rejected. They said, "You are no bloody case. You spend your time in jail." That should have been what it should have been. But unfortunately, there is news now that these men, these convicts, have been released from jail after serving 14 years. Now, somebody can start quoting some law here and there that after 14 years you can have a review petition and this thing and that thing. But every case merits a different analysis. When these people were sentenced to life in prison, at that time the Nirbhaya Act had not come into force, which happened after the rape and murder of the young girl in Delhi. That was the time when Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, and all credit to him that he brought in that law. Had that law been effective in 2002, all these characters would have been sentenced to death and they would have been executed. Now, that is the point, that is the fact. But you cannot apply an act retrospectively. So, what has happened is they got life imprisonment. Well, each case should have been examined in merit, and in case somebody really deserved, he could have been given a release. But to give a blanket release just when they complete 14 years looks very, very fishy. That is number one. Number two, it's the utter disregard of what happened to that lady. It's also a disregard of the Prime Minister talking from the ramparts of the Red Fort that he wishes to usher in a new era for the women in India. This is the new era he's ushering in. Wonderful. I must give him a lot of credit for it. Another important point which must be brought out, but when these fellows were released, there are photographs available. I don't want to show them here on my video. It's not worth the effort. That these convicts were being garlanded, they were being given sweets. I mean, you can well imagine where are we heading for in India. If in a democracy, in a state which has a heritage of 2000 years, in a state where Raja Kanishk ruled right up to Central Asia, if this sort of thing is going to happen here. Even if these were released, it should have been something low key and forgotten about it. Because we believe in the English system of justice. Now, everybody knows that in India, the English system of justice has been imported from England by Lord Macaulay. We have the Indian Evidence Act, the Indian Penal Code, all I think around 1861, and these are the cornerstone of Indian jurisprudence. British jurisprudence is based on one cardinal principle, and that is the principle of natural justice. Now, by releasing these men and then felicitating them with garlands and sweets and laddus and all that, is this what the principle of natural justice is? What effect, what will it have, the trauma of the girl or the woman who was raped, number one, and number two, on the others, and then on an entire community? It is a duty of the government to see that all sections of society are satisfied and have a feeling that justice has been done. One thing we must remember, that law means it must be fair and must also appear to be fair. In this case, it does not appear to be so. And that's a very, very sad occurrence. I'm very sorry that this thing should happen in India. The repercussions can be terrible. And when I say terrible, I'm not playing the tom-tom like the Red Indians used to do, When there was danger, they used to play the tom-tom and the smoke signals. There is a real danger of a total polarization in society now. And I wonder the government under Modi is going to do anything. The Supreme Court is a wonderful institution. It's about time the Supreme Court did something. Did something means exerted itself. It can take up any case suo moto in India. It can overrule the Gujarat government. The BJP, which was all the time talking of not releasing the killers of Rajiv Gandhi and insisting that they will serve their life in prison, has now done the opposite. And many of the BJP leaders are saying, well, they spent 15 long years in jail. What is 15 years long in jail? You committed a crime, you pay for it. And sometimes for the good of the nation. If necessary, you want to help these gentlemen, they should have been taken, put in some island and continued there. And that's the end of it. On a penal island, like the British used to do. The British used to treat the Andaman Islands as a penal colony. I don't say you use Andaman Islands now, but something similar is required to be done. These men has to be ostracized from society. Well, gentlemen, this is a very sad state of affairs that's happening, and this is not the only case. Every case I found that the killer of Byan Singh was released because the Punjab government wanted it. Again, politics. All this is politics to win the vote bank. And as I've always said, this Westminster model of India may prove to be like the anchor round the Indian state's neck. It will not be good for this country. It is not suitable to us. And of course, Nehru has created so many problems. This is one of the problems. He imported a system from England which had never been in use in India. India has never been a democracy. Somebody should tell me when India was a democracy. Whether Kanishk was ruling, or Chandragupta was ruling, or Ashok was ruling, or when the Mughal Empire was there any democracy? No, there never been any democracy. England and America had a tradition of democracy. We didn't have it. And we are not used to it. Now that can't be denied. I don't know what was in the mind of Dr. Ambedkar, but all the same, I beg to disagree with his line of thought that he should have a constitution based on what is there in England. England got a lot of good things, but this was not one of those things we should have copied. Gentlemen, The situation is very grim. I'm not very happy about what has happened, and I wonder what will be the future. As I've already said, the future has dark possibilities, dark probabilities. After all, the theory of probability is always there. N factorial. That's what we used to study in mathematics. And even when I was doing my law, I was very clear that law is something which is to benefit the people. It is supposed to bring in peace and tranquility. It is supposed to be an example to the other that you don't do this. It's supposed to be a principle wherein an innocent man is not convicted. But in case the High Court, the Sessions Court have all decided that the trial is fair and and certain acts have been taken, certain punishments passed, they have to be honored. You can't water them down. Well, gentlemen, I hope sanity prevails in the country. Things are not all that rosy at the moment. There is a live political problem continuing in the country because, as far as I can see, the BJP is just interested in how it can remain in power in one state here and there. But then their progress outside the Hindi states and Maharashtra is almost nil, zero. They'll have to rectify that. Thank you, gentlemen. I think that's about all for today. It's not a very happy day that I should say this. My view is very simple. These convicts should not have been released. And if they have been released on any ground, there is no question of any felicitation. And the men who are felicitating them with laddus and sweets and all that, they need to be put behind bars as well. Gentlemen, I close now. Jai Hind, God bless, and glory to India. Lastly, my familiar request, please share this video with your friends, with your relations, with anybody, and at the same time, do subscribe. God bless.